This ain't no regular podcast. This is Westchester Talks.
What's up, everybody? Y'all now tuned into Westchester Talks. This is PJ, your host. Of course, got my brothers with me. Lex to my right.
Good, bro.
Fred to my left.
What's up?
And today, as you can see, we're going to do things a little different. This episode is brought to you by Big Apple Smoothie. And that's exactly what we are at this moment doing this episode today. We had the pleasure of coming by, checking out the spot, and the person sitting to the left of me, the owner of Big Apple Smoothie, allowed us to come in, try some smoothies, and now we're ready to talk about some stuff. So first and foremost, Jim, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, PJ.
Yes,
Thanks,
sir.
Fred. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Lex. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah, so
Super excited.
definitely. We appreciate your time. It is definitely after hours. So, we appreciate you having us, making the time for us
100%.
to come by. We're going to talk a little bit more about a smoothie so far. Fantastic. We're going to get into that, though. You know what I'm saying? So I would say let's get straight into it. As far as you, having this business here in White Plains on Mamaroneck Avenue.
Yes, sir.
Been here for 20 plus years. Let's talk a little bit about Jim, his beginnings, where he came
Sure.
from, how his upbringing was, 2-parent household, single parent, brothers, sisters, all that type of stuff, where you from,
Awesome.
all that type of stuff, just so that people could, get to know you a little bit more.
100%. For those who don't know me already, after being here for 24 years.
Yeah.
Born and raised in Stamford, Connecticut. But ironically enough, spent a fair amount of my early career in White Plains back in the day. I won't date myself yet, but we'll come back to that. Was in the high-tech software industry for a number of years. Actually was where I kind of got the vibe for smoothies because I was traveling so much, looking for a healthy idea behind the business or behind the product, and ultimately lived on smoothies while I was traveling. But in the area of where and why kind of started in White Plains was in 1985, I started my career here selling high-tech software to downtown White Plains. So it kind of, I feel like a lot of people don't know that, where I got my start, and I kind of returned to, bring back to the community, which was something super important for me. Did a lot of research in the areas where I was when I grew up. 2-parent household, brother and a sister, older brother, older sister. I've got 2 kids, and that was part of the reason, the genesis. I created the business when I retired out of the corporate world for them, thinking it could be turned into something as a family business, which it did for a while. And then they spread their wings and flew into their own passions that they wanted to as well. So that's a quick story on my background.
And you mentioned high-tech software, right?
Yes, sir.
And you say you started that in 85?
85.
So when you say high-tech software, especially being in 85, what do you refer, like what is high-tech software?
Yeah, what was it at that time?
Especially 85,
Cool. Great question. Back in the day, back then, there were 3 main players: IBM, Digital Equipment Corp, and a company called Wang Laboratories. I happened to have the pleasure of getting recruited off of college to join that firm out of Connecticut. And high-tech software means fancy way of selling both application software, or at that time it was hardware. And I was selling hardware and technology to a lot of the insurance firms, law firms, and some of the other corporate or commercial customers.
Actual computers and stuff?
100%, yeah.
Okay.
Back then, it was a combination of what they used to do, which I'm going to date myself now. What back then was a word processor or a data processor. There was no such thing back then as a PC when we first started out. So the advent of the PC really took over everything and changed the way that we are ultimately doing things now versus what we have now in our hand, which is as powerful, if not more powerful, than one of the mainframes and things that we were working off of back then. But then that fast forward into having the pleasure of doing well enough to getting caught the eye of Steve Jobs' company back then, a company called Next Software. And I was recruited to start up their Connecticut district. And that's when things really changed. I had the pleasure of working for him for 10 years when he had gone from Apple to Next, launched that company, and then went from Next and then ultimately sold it back to Apple in 1996. So it was pretty crazy of a ride. And that was when the industry changed dramatically with the advent of PCs, the internet, and then of course what you guys and we all live on, which is the iPhone now, which we do everything in our lives with it. So
what At what point, you talked about traveling back and forth from San Francisco.
Yes.
At one point, did you say you lived off smoothies, but at what point did you say, this is what I want to invest my time in? Because I know transitioning from probably a well-paying job at the moment to, once you're transitioning and going into a different, business, a line of work, because it's totally different. So what was that point where you're like, all right, I'm gonna take this risk, and I'm gonna, jump into this smoothie business?
It didn't come without a lot of thought and a lot of research to a certain extent. I was in the tech business for a good part of 30 years almost. So right before the tech bubble burst, again dating myself, when the high tech bubble burst in roughly 2000, going into 2001, at the end of 2000 was when I knew that I wanted to hang up my road shoes and ultimately start to focus on something that I was passionate about. So I had built the business plan, done a lot of research in terms of other businesses that were in the market at that point, and the only one at that point was Jamba Juice out in San Francisco. So one of the things that I did, as crazy as it was I would leave on a Monday, travel back on a Friday from LaGuardia or Kennedy Airport, come back and do it all over again the next week. So I basically lived here, but spent most of my life and career in the West Coast. And every week I would get on that plane and I'd get out of San Francisco Airport in Terminal, I think it was 7. There was a Jamba Juice that was there. That was my breakfast. And then there was a Jamba Juice around the corner that I used and I had for lunch along with some other food, maybe salad and things. And then we'd go out with clients. But that was where I caught the bug. And I really understood what kind of the flavor profiles of the combinations of fruit and everything. But then we did a fair amount of research, kind of like what we had fun with Fred tonight, since he hadn't been here in a while, did a lot of focus groups, trying to figure out what were the combinations. I knew what I liked. I knew the combinations that worked well. But as we said in the call it corporate business, the same thing you do in retail, you have to understand your product how it fits with the market and your customers. So we did a lot of that. And that turned into the business plan in 1999. And then at the same time, if you guys all recall, I think you guys were young bucks back then, 1999 was when White Plains went through I think the most dramatic urban renewal in the entire US. I think it was over $1 billion that was being spent in White Plains for redoing and redeveloping everything that you now see in White Plains. So I saw that as a great opportunity where it was an up and coming city, very similar to what was going on in Stanford, where I was born and raised, but not to the magnitude that White Plains. So I ended up sitting out here with something that looked like an umpire's clicker and counted people walking by different locations. So putting in the grind, putting in the work, making certain that you knew what were the businesses that were and the customers that were coming to. For those who will probably, hopefully see this, they'll remember that there was probably anywhere between 18 to 21 hair salons and about 5 or 6 different gyms, all within a 3-block area. And when you see that concentration of people coming in the area, you know that you've got good foot traffic. So after doing the business plan, finding the location, building it out, we knew that this was going to be the right spot. And at that point was when I said, I'm going to retire out of the corporate world and made the move to this. So I got completely out of the corporate world, and this was my full-time gig, building it out.
So I want to ask, right? In an attempt for not only us, but our viewers to get to know you better, let's scale back a little bit.
Sure.
Us three here at Westchester Talks, our main premise is sports, the sports world. We all come from the sports world, whether they're playing, coaching, or whatever. Were there any sports that you partook in growing up and things like that? Tell us about it.
I did. I was big into basketball, very much like you guys, and not maybe as good, but I was Charlie Hustle, if you will, big on defense. I also was a high school soccer player. I was a goalie, which I was pretty passionate about. And the problem with me when I was growing up in high school, I was about this big. I was a stick figure. I blossomed when I went to college. So all my athleticism, which was I could run, I could jump, but I was skinny as hell. I said, I'm not gonna, this is not for me. But then when I got into college, I played CEO ball and some of the rec leagues, and we had great time doing that. I mean, that's a big part of my life, exercising along with trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So absolutely. athletics. My brother was a big football player. Got his shot to go from semi-pro to pro. Had, I think, 5 or 6 tryouts, and ultimately didn't make it, but got his shot. So that always was a big, thing for me, kind of motivating factor for kind of following in that footstep from an athletic standpoint.
So I'm sorry to piggyback off my own question and your response.
Yeah.
I have conversations all the time with people about the correlation of sports and going into business and what habits you pick up. Were there any habits that you took from playing sports and anything that you took from playing sports that you implemented into the business side of things?
A couple of things. I think it's a great question, and I think there's a lot of corollaries to that. Whether you come
getting
from
better at this, man.
whether
It's
it's
the smoothie.
Got his brain working. Got his brain turning.
That's it. There's a bunch of corollaries with regards to not only the sports side of it, but also the business side of it, and how it translates into a retail or your own small business. I kind of live on 3 credos, ethos, whatever you want to call it. As we talked about before, product to customer fit is always a clear understanding. The other one is people want to know that you care before they care to know you, which is something that I was taught early on in my career. And the third is seek first to understand, then be understood. And that is those 2 things have carried me a long way, because listen a lot first before you talk, and understand what is the driving factor by that person that's either sitting next to you, in front of you, or part of a team. So it's huge for me from a business perspective.
Absolutely.
And I credit that too, because I remember last time we sat down and we spoke. Actually, I think one of your employees called you and said that I think they had a flat tire or something, or something happened. They got hit or something like that. And the first thing you said was, "Hey, don't worry about coming in on time. Do you need my help? Do you need me to do you need me to help you with anything?" And I think that's a huge credit to why the store, right, feels like a family environment when you walk in, because if if your employees are feeling that from you, then they can dish it out to the customers. And I feel like every time I've come here, like we spoke before, and I mentioned it to them, I've been coming to Big Apple since I was in high school or early high school. So that's 10 plus, 15 plus years of me coming to Big Apple, and I had a great experience every single time. There's never one time I'm like, I'm never going back to Big Apple. So that's definitely a credit to the person that leads it. And that's also like, just to answer your question, I think with business, you have to treat it like a team, right? Yeah. If you're the leader of the team, you got to be able to 100%. Understand your teammates, know their needs and what they're successful at, right? Strengths and weaknesses, and also the strengths and weaknesses of your own team, your own business. So I think it's been a great just time me being here, and definitely had to get us guys here.
And one follow-up, Fred, to that, I think because it's important from the sports metaphor or analogy, is leadership by example is first and foremost from your parents and your upbringing to your business world, as well as your athletics. And if any one of us have played on a team, you may be the star player, but you're not going to go too far without the rest of the team behind you. So in here, I give all credit. I really appreciate that, Lex, because I think that's an under recognized attribute of not my business, but all small businesses come down to the employees. And my wife and I have been blessed with some unbelievable young kids that we brought in. They had no experience, that we trained. We treated them like our own family, but they, I think, learned a lot, life lessons, leadership lessons, how to handle themselves. And to that point about that story is that kid is one of our best employees, and I'm going to be with him the rest of his life, both as a mentor, as an advisor, but somebody that he can always lean on from a father figure to help him support it. And Absolutely. We try to do that. And we try to do that also as it translates back to the community. And you'll see that in the Instagram. We hardly ever talk about ourselves. We always talk about the response and the reaction and the feedback from the customers. They're the ones who have kept us in business, combined with the team, along with hopefully a good, consistent product.
So the first day you guys ever opened, do you remember the exact date?
August of 2022, yeah.
August?
It was a Tuesday, I believe it was.
Wait, 2002?
I'm sorry. Yeah, 2002.
2002.
Yeah.
2002.
What did I say?
2022.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
2002. Sorry.
2002. So
Yes.
how old were you at that time?
In 02, I was born in 93, so it's at 9.
Okay, good math. Okay. Check it. All right.
He's using his fingers.
So how?
I went to Woodlands. I'm sorry.
So if you could think back, how was your first day? The first day these doors opened, what were your thoughts? How did it go? Because some people, they say small businesses usually last,
2 years.
2 years, and then they close down. As you know, and as I know, growing up in White Plains, there's been many, many small businesses in and out throughout the years that I've been here. And like I said, you have the consistency and the run of like a LeBron James right now. So
That's
how was
verify there.
So how did that first day feel? How was it? Right? And what were your thoughts about your business going forward?
My best recollection was we were super excited. I mean, it was off the charts. We had done all the hard work to get it to that point, which was a lot. I think the one thing that I remember most was we had done a lot of marketing and ingraining ourselves to the community, where, again, going back to that story about the 16, 17 hair salons and the gyms, we brought them in first and kind of almost did that focus group testing so they could taste not only the smoothies. At that time, we were actually serving different items of food that were all homegrown family recipes that I know Fred would have liked had I had some tonight, but we didn't. We got out of that business. But the bottom line was we did a lot of pre-work and built that excitement. So when we opened, the draw was there, and outside of normal challenges and whatnot of the did a breaker blow or something because we were overloaded and we got hit with a fair amount of customers, it was exceptional. I mean, it was everything that I had hoped for or we had hoped for. The team that I remember at those first few kids that we had, combined with my wife and I, that we were hustling and bustling, was unbelievable. They loved it. The energy was off the charts. We were playing, which we always do. We try to play great music in the cafe. So it had a really good vibe to it. And it was not only a great day, it was that first week, the way that I measured it, it couldn't have gone better, because I would have been concerned had it gone worse or something had happened. I would have been scared to death saying, what did I just do? But it went exceptionally well. I was really, really happy and proud of what we had put into it by kind of going through those incremental steps to get us there. So it was fun.
Yeah, and that's dope to hear something starting from, like he said, all the small bit. It's not just White Plains. It's been all over Westchester County. Like stores opening, people we know opening stuff, and then 1 minute there, next minute it's gone. So for you to last as long as you've been, 23 years.
Coming up on my 24th.
Going on 24, especially like through certain moments, like certain financial crisis, we recently just had COVID. So to be able to like make it through all that stuff,
was crazy.
That's a testament to you. So as great as it has been, which I feel like you have to be to last as long as you've lasted, what were and are some of the struggles you deal with on a, let's say, day to day, and then just like in general, say like the last 3 years, what has been maybe some struggles just on day to day, and then even to maybe grow the business?
So we started in 2002, just a quick history. 2002, about a year and a half later, we opened that larger facility in Stanford, which was an exceptional opportunity at the time. It was going gangbusters. It was in a 2-sheet ice skating rink with a New York sports club on top. The people who owned that complex came to us. They had heard great things about us, asked us if we wanted to take over that site. So that was, again, in a very short period of time to get that kind of testament and that kind of response was pretty cool. It kind of validated, I guess, PJ, what I was saying is you have a business plan. It all looks good on paper. People get a reaction on smoothies and what they taste, but you just never know until you execute, because it all comes down to execution. And I think that goes back to Fred's point about from a team perspective, and you could be great individually, but you got to execute as a team. So that was high praise initially, and we were there for a good 5 years or more. And then the financial crisis happened. But during that time, we got that next step up was we got introduced to New York Sports Club, because they had one of their major facilities up top. And they said, we're going to be building out these beautiful facilities we're starting in New Jersey, 50,000 square feet, state of the art. We want you to be our center point cafe. So that was check number 2, that was a really nice validation. The problem there was shortly after they opened that first location, the financial crisis hit. The real estate fell through or fell off the table, and everything just went off a cliff. And people pulled back on their discretionary income. New York Sports Club smartly said, we're not going to build out because we don't have that product, or the demographic wasn't going to be there for the market that we were targeting. So they only opened that one. We were there for about 2 years. And then we said, if you're not going to open up the next 2 through 6, then it doesn't make a smart business sense. So we ended up pulling out. They ended up closing that location, and then came back to our flagship, which was here. So after going through that change, which I think was a great learning experience for both good and bad reasons, learning how maybe fast to grow or not so fast to grow, keeping your eye on the prize. This was still going very well, which was our flagship. And then, fast forward several years later, COVID hit. And I would say that for us, and I'd say every business, both corporate business, because I had also been going back and forth. I got asked to get back into the corporate world, still having the business running successfully, but I was asked to get back in, help a couple startup companies. So I went back in, and that was when you saw the real impact of COVID across both small business, large corporations, and everything in between. The one thing specifically for Big Apple during that time, both pre and then through it and post, that I'm most proud of was we kind of managed everything so conservatively because we wanted to protect our staff. We didn't want our staff to lose their job. So we, at that point, had already cut out some of the other items that were not selling well, i.e. because we were having to be forced to do food prep offsite. We realized that our business really was the success of the smoothies and the snacks and the healthy items that we sell. So we really kind of hunkered down and really focused back on what made us successful. And the pandemic also proved something for us, for me, which ingrained us even tighter to the community, was we became a welcome outlet that, yes, we were doing the social distancing, yes, we were doing following all the procedures, but people knew they had a consistent place to go that was going to be there open every day. They were going to get a great quality, healthy product, and that they were going to be served by quality staff. We took all the precautions. Our staff really appreciated it. We didn't lay off any one of our team members. But that was probably the most hard, most motivating at the same time because of what we were able to accomplish during those 3 years. And then we came out stronger for it because I believe that forced us to be even tighter into the community, into serving the fire department, the police department, the EMS, the hospitals, all of the teachers that were off, that were coming in here. It was just incredible to be able to provide them and to serve them. And of course, the staff really appreciated what we did as well through that time. But that was probably the most challenging. And then lastly on that, which was a byproduct, not to get into the business too much, the supply chain disruptions. Couldn't get certain items. The supply chain ships were sitting out in sea and on their container ships because they couldn't get into port. So it really became a challenge that we had to rejigger things. We had to go to different locations with different vendors to get the items in order to continue to be able to sell. So it was something that we learned that we would never have to been forced to had we not gone through that.
What's going on, everybody? I know you are enjoying the podcast right now. Our passion is your health, and there's no better place to come than Big Apple Smoothie here at 197 Mamaroneck Avenue in White Plains, New York. If you show up and you say Westchester Talks, you might get a little 10% off or something like that. So make sure you come in the Big Apple Smoothie and say Westchester Talks. All right, back to the podcast.
Yeah, I know you mentioned it a little, but just because I know a lot of people, go through this, especially as a business owner, what made you not quit? Because out of all the no's that you probably received,
good question.
What made you keep going? And again, I know you said this was doing well, but what made you hone back into what advice did you take for yourself that made you like, hey, let's get back to, ground one and rebuild?
Yep.
Per se.
I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. is understanding where you came from, meaning what was the crux of our success in the beginning. And it was purely the smoothies. At that time, we also were serving coffee at the time. So we had a little bit of a varied menu, but we knew what our core was. The higher percentage of our business and the revenues that the analytics were providing to us was you were making money and serving the community with those smoothies. And quite honestly, Lex, the big thing that was the feedback we were getting from the customer and the community. They have now been an integral part of us readapting some of the smoothies. We've taken some smoothies off that weren't as regularly sold. We've actually added a whole bunch from our customers, hence the reason why we have a customer section. And now we have a secret menu that we've created, all based on the feedback and the flavor profiles of the customers, which in my opinion, just makes it even more motivating for me as to say, we've got something that is not only integral to the community, but people really like the product. They love that product. You're a testament to us. I'm going to get these two guys hopefully after this, but you've been coming here for 10 years. Think of how many small businesses, and I'll ask you guys a question. How many small businesses, since you guys grew up, that you go back to and you frequent for 10 years, let alone 5 years or 3 years? We've got customers that we've had coming here that met on a date, came back and were married, and then came back and had kids.
That's beautiful.
I mean, it's just incredible.
That's beautiful. Most of the businesses that we probably encountered when we were younger aren't even standing anymore, let alone do we have the opportunity to even go back. So, basically for me to kind of piggyback off of that is we talked about your first few days here, the first day here. Lex is a consistent customer. Me and PJ will be coming in. Do you remember your first time in?
No.
It was such a long time, right?
Yeah, I was coming in high school, so this was like our go-to during lunch period or right after school, after basketball practice. After weekends when we have basketball, we'll come in, grab a smoothie, and then go back to our neighborhoods. But dude, we've been doing. I've been coming here for so often that I don't really remember my first time.
And PJ, this your first time in?
I was telling Jim, I think I came by like randomly. I had a phase where I was like, I was like on some healthy, drinking smoothies, and I was in White Plains. I might have been leaving I was in White Plains for some reason, and I just looked up smoothies. This popped up, and I told him I just randomly one day just popped in, got the smoothie real quick, and left.
That's awesome.
This was like a few years ago, like randomly, without knowing like it's Big Apple Smoothie and Jim. And all that.
That's dope. See, because I got a story for mine. You know what I'm saying? I was a freshman in college, and I was getting a haircut around the corner. Shout out my guy, Ant. Shout out, Ant.
That's my guy.
I was getting a haircut, and when most men get a haircut, now all of a sudden we got errands to run now. We got things to do that we didn't have to do prior to getting the haircut. So after the haircut, I'm walking and I'm like, man, what am I about to eat? I was tired of, the chicken spots, and I was tired of McDonald's and stuff. And I said, you know what, I feel good because of the haircut. I want to get something healthy, right? And because I ain't never did nothing healthy before, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to come to Big Apple Smoothie. Ant used to come here, and he suggested it to me. So I came. Listen, I was brand new that day. I can't, like people was trying to talk to me about certain things. I'm like, yo, listen, man, I had a smoothie today. I don't even want to hear that today. I was a different person. Because I like to think smoothies, people talk about, wellness, things of that nature. Sure. Smoothies, things of that nature, just make you feel better.
Yeah.
Like when I had this Iron Man just now, shout out to the Iron Man here at Big Apple Smoothie. I forgot Tony Stark was dead in the movie. It was amazing. I'm
going to remember that one. That's a good one. That's good.
I love it.
I like that.
And speaking on the smoothies, definitely, I think my cousin Vinny, like you said, some of the names is like by customers. So two questions. One, how can a customer put in to name a smoothie, and then two, where do you come up with the other names? Like
we're not putting no crazy names on the board.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Like
not putting spot, got it. We're not putting my cousin Jamal. We're not doing that. We're not doing none of that. You know what I'm saying?
Around the corner. No,
we're not doing that.
That's great. I'm sorry. I'm laughing. That was good, Fred. I'm going to remember that. When we started, we kind of had it as, hence the name Big Apple Smoothie, was close proximity to New York. The logo is tied to the arm of the Statue of Liberty. And of course, the tagline, "Our passion is your health," was all about trying to come up with some fun names. And in actuality, when we were doing those original focus groups, there were a bunch of guys that were big Marvel guys. So that's how we got into some of the names like Iron Man, Wonder Woman, etc. But then we also came up with the other ones, like the New York State of Mind is kind of tailored to the Big Apple. Then you've got My Cousin Vinny was the movie from My Cousin Vinny. The Real Latte came from some of the big coffee shops down in the city. And then we just kind of had a fun time playing with some of the combinations, Moonlight Mango and stuff like that.
The Copa Banana.
The Copa Banana, the old club, exactly, very good. But then, from a customer perspective, was really guys like Lex coming in and taking what I created as the flavor profile. And by the way, props to you, that smoothie, My Cousin Vinny, was the original one that I used to get, a little bit slightly modified from Jamba Juice back in the day, and made it my own. And that was the real crux that started this whole thing, because I lived on that smoothie every day. So customers coming in said, "Hey, I want to add spinach, or I want to add something else to it. I want to do this." And then we try it out and we'd sample it out, and customers' reaction was, "Holy shit, this is pretty damn good." So that's how we created some of the ones, like the X-Man is a modification of the Iron Man with honey and cinnamon. The Wolverine is another one. The Dreamsicle is a throwback to us when we were young kids. That popsicle, the orange popsicle and the vanilla. So we created it with a smoothie, and that was something that one of the customers had asked. We created it, and we made the smoothie. And then there's a couple of other ones. The Demos Delight is my nephew. He created that one when we had the store in Stanford. And then a couple of the other ones were other customers as well. So we are trying to iterate all the time, and we're always asking customers, what can we do better? How can we change things? What are we missing? Especially by adding things to it.
So if somebody walks in for the very first time, and they were to say, just give me something that would make them return, would My Cousin Vinny be the first thing you present?
So one of the things that we did a lot prior to the pandemic, and this goes back to PJ's question, one of the things that I always liked going to either other juice places or even other food establishments, and you guys tell me if I'm right or wrong, if somebody gives you a sample of something, you're more inclined to not only ingratiate yourself to say, "Wow, that's really good. Where is this on the menu?" So you take more interest. So we used to sample all the time. So just like that same cup that we started with, that we gave Brittany and G before, we do that every day, 1,000 times a day. So if somebody's new or old, we want them to come in and try before they buy. We ask the question, what kind of fruits do you like? Kind of the reason why I asked you guys before, since I have never had the pleasure to meet Fred or PJ or even the crew, what do they like? So then we came up with the combinations that were part of our smoothie menu. But then first thing we asked is, don't just try one, try them all. So after during the pandemic, we lost that touch. Nobody wanted to touch anything. So then you would ask, they would say, and the first question is, what kind of fruits do you like? What kind of combinations do you like? We point them to the menu, and then the other side of it is, let's create something for, if you don't like anything up there, and there are a few customers that come in with their own custom combinations, and we make it to order. But since the pandemic's over and we were able to regain that trust and that engagement, it's one of the mainstays that we train all the employees, and especially if I'm here, there's not a customer that comes in that doesn't hear me say, there's about 3 or 4 different samples up on the counter. Please try. Don't try one, try them all. And it's the way that people get more comfortable and they're more motivated to get out of their comfort zone and to try something that they haven't tried before.
So what makes them, because I see, like, since we started this, you mentioned the word customer a lot.
Yes, sir.
So you could tell that's like very important to you. And obviously customers is what makes businesses run.
Correct.
But not everybody values or looks at their customers how you would, even if it is the customer that helps the business thrive. What was there a specific point in your life that made you say, okay, I have to value my customers this much and care about them this much? And even like you said, our passion is your health. Like, even the slogan, it's like, what makes you in this business so customer and community oriented, unlike other businesses?
I don't know if it's different than other businesses, but I think pure and simple, the customer is the center point of everything that we do. And it wasn't just in my own small business or small and growing business. It was the exact same premise and thesis that I used to articulate and prophesize with my global teams, whether they were in one office or around the globe. The customer is the most important thing in the entire ecosystem of anyone's business. The moment you lose that, the moment you fail, that's when you will fail. And that same thing also comes down to the partnerships. If you don't believe in that partnership and you don't value that, whether you're a corporate entity or a small business, and I mean partnerships here for us is with your vendors, with your people that you're doing sponsorships with, the high schools, the hospitals, the SW BOCES, what do you call it, learning center that's right down the street. We've ingrained them to come in with their students who are either deaf or potentially blind or have some disability. They're coming in I think 3 times a week now, and we're teaching them how to clean the tables, help wash the blenders, help organize the back, give them a sense of belonging and meaning. And to me, there's no greater appreciation. We got a chance to present to the mothers, and one of the greatest pieces of feedback made me almost cry was the mother stood up and said, I can't thank you enough because my son came home and wants to make me a smoothie because of what he learned at your business. And I can't thank you enough. He would have never known or learned and valued that. And for me as a business owner, as a human, there's nothing better. So to me, the customer is everything. And it goes back to whoever asked the question is, after 24 years, we live and die by our customers. Absolutely. And if they stop coming, the 4 of us wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and then that also ties into the community.
100%.
So how would you explain your thought process on the importance of being a staple in the community, right? Because some businesses are just businesses, right? They're there to do the job and, make their business run, pay their bills, and then go home. Other businesses actually want, the input of the community, want to be a part of the community, want to have sponsorships, want to, invest in other, people's ideas and stuff just to show that they value the area that they're in, right? And like I said, you live in Stanford, but you did everything in White Plains. And to really be a part of the community, not just the business aspect, but about of the community that that's around, from the high schools and the hospitals and just the regular people that are walking up and down Mamaroneck Avenue.
Absolutely.
What drives you to kind of have that close connection with the community?
I think it kind of stems off of, or it pivots, or extends off of what PJ just asked, and where I was saying it's not a pivot. To me, it's almost another link in that chain. That customer is coming in here spending their hard-earned dollars. If they're not getting not only a quality product, but they're not also getting quality service, what's the chance that person's going to come back into your place? So for us, we went out of our way, especially in the early days, going back to what we were talking about earlier. One of the things that I did personally, I went out into the community when this is back in 2002, probably through 2010, where we were going out into the community. I was bringing smoothie samples to the salons, to some of the other local businesses, in order to say, hey, if you haven't been, we're right around the corner, because there was always that changing of the guard in terms of whether they're bars that were here, salons that had come and gone, restaurants that had come and gone. And we didn't care if they were in, because most of the workers were coming in here and getting the smoothie and then going back to work, because it was something that was easy that they could eat while they were on the job. So we kind of ingrained ourselves with that mindset that says, not only that we want them to come to us, we got to go to them. And there were no things like DoorDash or Grubhub or any of those things back then. So we were doing it by just walking around. We would also sponsor pop-ups at salons where we would bring smoothies and give them away for free to their clients sitting in the chair. Well, what would that do? That would immediately ingratiate you to that community. They'd say, where are you at? And the next thing, they'd come back 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, when a woman was getting her hair done or getting their nails done, they were coming back in and saying, I'm going to come and get that smoothie while I go get my hair done, because it was awesome. That is the only way from a customer service perspective can you ingrain yourself. In addition to doing special things that we did during COVID, delivered to the hospital workers and the nurses, the fire department guys that couldn't come by, we would try to always be open for them because they were working crazy hours and under duress. And the same thing with the EMS guys that were servicing the community, and same with the police. So that's how we built the relationship, and I'd say the trust in what we did. And thankfully, we got really good feedback that, you know, the staff was really nice, the service was great, and the product was consistent. As a business owner, Lex, to me, those are the greatest three things that anybody could tell you.
For sure. And I'm gonna go a little back.
Okay.
A little back, just because I want to ask just one question specifically about like the support going into it. So some, like you said, corporate job, worked with Steve Jobs. Like I'm sure you, the money wasn't too much of a problem before you got into the smoothie world. How was the support from the wife, the kids, the family, where you telling them like, hey, I'm thinking about leaving this corporate world to go open a smoothie shop? Like, were they like, oh yeah, we're going to support you? Or like, wait, you leaving this money to go start something basically from scratch, taking this chance? Like, how was the support?
So some people stop answering your calls. Like, he about to ask me for a loan. I can, you know, you can't even call for $10.
That's awesome. Great question.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to your passion. You know, what are you passionate about? What drives you? What motivates you? I was a person at that time in 2000, 2001. This is certainly before the horrific stuff that happened in New York City. I was burnt out. I had been traveling the majority of my adult life all over the globe. I was blessed to have done as well as I had done. My family was incredibly supportive during those days because, as the story told, because of me going back and forth to California as often as I did, I probably missed at least a good 3 to 5 years of my young kids' life when they were babies because I was traveling. My wife is absolutely my soulmate and my rock, and without her, I wouldn't have been able to do that job. Right. So fast forward 20, 30 years later, where she saw the grind that had taken its toll on her husband and the father, it was a welcome change, but not without trepidation and without concern. Yes, knock on wood, we had done well, but it was a huge change, and it was a huge pivot from what I had done and known for decades. Right. But I knew that if you had put in the time, you understood the business, you understood the product, and you saw a market opportunity. And again, I'll emphasize this because somehow we may have missed it. Back then in 2002, forget later, but in 2002, coming out of the 90s, sure, money was flying, especially in my business, but nobody here knew how to spell smoothie, let alone where the smoothies were on the East Coast. It was a California thing. But I saw what they were doing as a business model, and that was one of the reasons why I knew it could work if you combined it with some food items, maybe some soup, some coffee, and that's what we did as part of the original business plan. And that's where you knew that you could go through the summer months or the warm climate months, but then, oh shit, what were going to happen in those 4 months where it gets pretty damn cold here in the Northeast? So you needed to buffer that. And as we learned, as we grew, we realized it says yes and no, because you were building up that clientele that said you could rely on your core strength, which is the smoothie. But the support during that time, I can't tell you, it was extraordinary. Not only just from my wife and my kids, but even my extended family. My sister was a big help in the early days with the recipes for the food. My brother was a big support in helping build some of this stuff out. Right. So it was definitely a family affair in the beginning. That's good. And it was a leap for sure.
So no one said, you about to sell smoothies? Especially in 2002, because now
corporate guys did.
Yeah, because I'm saying now, like smoothies, all the health spots.
Absolutely.
It's a lot around, right? 2002,
nope.
There was really no smoothie spots, or unless you're going to
nobody was even thinking.
Yeah, no one was thinking about like healthy foods. Like some places are now just sell salads. Like no one was really thinking that. So
exactly.
No one said like you about to leave this paying job because it probably was hot to sell.
Absolutely.
Strawberries and bananas. It's kind of crazy to think at that time too.
And a better question is somebody that you like valued what they thought. Because anybody
100%.
could think like, oh, what are you doing? But if it's somebody that's like, Jim, what are you doing? And it's like, this is somebody that you really value. It's like, damn, am I like, there wasn't nobody like that. Like that.
There were a few, and most of them were from the guys that I had spent all my, business running hard in the corporate world, saying, you're going to give up. And I had, gotten to a very high, a successful / high level running and being an executive at these tech companies. But at the same time, you get to a point where it's time for you to make either a pivot and do something else, or you're going to retire. And that was my jumping off point in 2001, 2002.
That's dope.
I retired, turned 40, and I said, I'm going to do this. And I committed to it. But yes, there were people, great mentors, great friends, probably thought I was absolutely batshit crazy. But here we are, 24 years later. And yes, gone back and forth one or two times after that because some great mentors asked me to get back in the game. But I'm proud to say that there aren't too many people that have a business that's been successful, is ingrained in a community like we are here, and knock on wood, have been able to be as successful through the
and I'll say
work
that,
we did.
right? Like, we joke around and laugh about it, but I say that because a lot of people's dreams die because of that, right?
Yeah.
And passion dies because of the no's
Great point.
that they receive instead of listening to the yes that they have in their corner, right? So that's why I was kind of mentioning it, because like, even like us personally, or our friends, we know that they have dreams, they have aspirations, but that leap of faith, right, and that leap of grind sometimes get cut short, even before it even becomes something that a sound, right, of like you bring it into fruition. But in their mind, it dies because of those no's and because of those people around them. And sometimes it's usually the people that are more scared than you are, and they put that fear on you.
True.
So like, your coworkers or the people that you worked with in the tech company were probably more nervous that you would succeed, because it kind of dims their light of them doing what they want to do. I mean, obviously some people are happy with what they're doing.
Right. They were seeing them checks like, you about to leave. Jim,
Well, you know what, Jim? Listen, let me give you a handshake, because it all worked out from from software applications to smoothie stations. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this worked out.
I love it.
Yo, listen, I got a catchphrase for everything, man.
Yeah, but no, that's true though, because that's very important for people to see and people to hear, because like a lot of us, right, and I just generalize it, we don't really take that next step in our career because of that, because of the fear. So
Agree. And the thing that I would say back is a learning lesson of all of that. And it's maybe a real good summary or culmination of the conversation, which has been awesome, is giving back. And we talked about it maybe in the prelim, that as long as I've been here, I've always wanted and offered my advice, mentorship, whatever it is, looking at business plans, helping the other young bucks that are coming up with an idea. And an idea is great, and the passion is great, but you still got to do the work. You got to put the business plan together. You have to have your numbers and understanding what you're going to do and the costs and how that's going to generate the revenue. If you don't want to do that work and you're literally going to put cash in the barrelhead, you're going to piss it away because you're not being thoughtful. You have to have a plan.
Absolutely.
And that's the number one thing that I tell any young business owner, new business owner, young guy that thinks that he's got the next, whether it's on the software side or in the tech business or in retail, whether it's smoothie or not. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people come in and said, I'd like to sit down with you. I'd like to pick your brain. I'd like to see if you'd be willing to expand. Could I, buy a franchise? And that's one of the things that we never anticipated getting back, but it's now something that I'm looking forward to do going forward, beyond what we've already done with the people that we've already worked with. So,
I think that's a great point. Like, not only what Lex mentioned about like people being scared and getting fear from like people close to them, but I think one of the main things is, like you said, putting in the work. Actually putting in the work, because like you said, you came from a field where you could have probably just put the money into something and sat back and
Yep.
and probably still would have been successful maybe because of the, you know, the money machine behind
Sure.
it could have been.
Sure.
But like you said, you sitting out here, clicker, checking out
Always.
different businesses and putting in the work to
feet
make
on land.
Big Apple Smoothie successful as opposed to hoping it's going to be successful,
Yeah.
you know? So big kudos to you for
Thank
that
you.
because
Yeah, definitely.
that's definitely, it's different coming from the field you coming in, and especially somebody being, a lot of people will get comfortable. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people will get comfortable.
And by the way, there's nothing wrong if
No,
you
no,
want,
not at
if you
all.
want to
Right,
retire
right.
and you
For
want
sure,
to sit
for
on
sure.
a couch or
For
you
sure,
want to play
for
golf
sure,
or whatever.
yeah.
I was always motivated by work. I
Right,
learned that from my
yeah.
dad. My dad worked hard. I certainly worked hard when we were in the corporate world, but for me, that was part of, you know, my DNA.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
even after I retired, and I maybe retired too early, I knew I was not going to just sit around and
Right.
do nothing. I was already had 2 or 3 different things that I wanted to do.
Sure.
This happened to be the one that took off first, and then I've done some other investments and other things. But without a doubt, it all comes down to doing the work.
Definitely.
No question.
Definitely. So I would say, kind of to get to the end of things. First of all, what's next for Big Apple Smoothie? Like, of course, you here, been here 20 plus years. Everybody knows this is the spot you can come to, get your smoothie, get your healthy treats. But yeah, like, what's next? What's next?
One of the things is that we were trying to figure out, and we talked about it earlier, is it the time now, as things have settled down after the pandemic, to expand? Where's the next location or locations? We've gotten asked about that. We've gotten approached about that. I've actually approached other businesses that have large, you know, to a certain extent, there's a potential that you want to look to where you can become a part of an anchor store, that you become not so much a kiosk, but instead of doing everything, doing something, focus on that and being a component within it. Kind of like we were doing that we talked about with New York Sports Club on that type of a level. One of the other things that we've gotten listening to our customers that we've been very, very slow in doing because we didn't like the services, but now one of them has now changed their business model, which is DoorDash, where they allow the merchants to be able to time when the dasher comes to pick up your item so that you can guarantee that the quality of the product that they have in the store is going to be as good as it is 3 or 4 miles away. So we're about to launch into that, which I think is going to be a big boon for us going into the winter months.
Sure.
Use it as a trial period, and then hopefully come back out into the spring and the summer and hitting the ground running. And we think that's going to be a real good addition to the business model. Something that we
So
were
look out for
on.
Big Apple
On DoorDash.
on DoorDash.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes. And lastly, I mean, unless you guys got anything,
No.
any
Yeah,
last
no,
questions,
great.
any last statements, anything?
No, I mean, we always end. What advice would you give for people starting a business? You gave kind of advice and
Yeah,
gems throughout
just
the
did.
entire
for sure.
throughout the entire thing. But yeah, could we just kind of finish out with, you know, what advice would you give to somebody starting, and then also somebody that's kind of stuck in the middle of whether to start or not to start?
Just some motivation.
Yeah.
You know, and we can look right there, get a tight zoom right there.
You got it.
Yeah.
I'd say, kind of repeating myself, what we talked about before is, first and foremost, you got to put in the work in terms of building out whatever the business plan is. Put in the work, do the homework, understand where that business is going to, where you want to put it or to have it established. Understand the customer or the demographic in that area that's going to become your patrons on a consistent basis. And most importantly, understand, you know, as I said before, people want to know that you care before they care to know you. So no matter how great your product is, make sure that that person knows that you care about what they want before you start thinking that you're going to bring it to the table. And then hard work outpaces everything in this business, for sure. And lastly, if you don't know, ask for help. 100%. I can't thank you guys
Don't be
enough.
scared to ask.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's episode 19. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Shout out again to Big Apple Smoothie.
Come out, get some smoothies.
Definitely come by.
Westchester Talks sent you.
Yes, Jim.
Thank
we
you,
appreciate
PJ,
you.
Lex, pleasure.
Always.
Fred, pleasure. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's episode
been
19,
awesome.
Westchester Talks, Big Apple Smoothie, and we out.